Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik and Miami quarterback Carson Beck have just been named two of the top 10 most important players in the entire country.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Kenton Gibbs, former NC State defensive lineman and co-host of Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno, host of Locked On Canes, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. On this episode, we'll talk some ACC versus Big 12, because everywhere I look, Big 12 folk are talking about which teams they're going to steal from the ACC over the next few years. Kenton Gibbs might have an alternative solution to these problems. There is a shocking sports betting stat when it comes to the UNC Tar Heels that we have to break down. But Kenton Gibbs, Bill Connelly from ESPN, he is one of the prestigious college football writers out there, put out his list of top 40 players in America this year. And I already mentioned the ACC's got two quarterbacks in the top 10, Cade Klubnik at number 8, Carson Beck at number 10. Before we break those down, I'm not sure if you've seen this list, so I would like your guess. Who does Bill Connelly think is the number one most important player in America?
I'm going to say Jeremiah Smith.
That would have been my guess, but it's not Jeremiah Smith. It's a certain unproven quarterback with a famous last name.
I don't get it. I don't understand the Arch Manning love to any degree, especially when Texas has a very good running game in its own right and all those things. And a defense that is phenomenal. It's not even like their defense is like, oh, they're serviceable and the offense is going to have to put – I'm not going to get into it with Arch Manning today. I'm disappointed, but not surprised, Donno. Disappointed, but not surprised.
I mean, I don't know if this softens the blow a little bit, because Connelly, I think his entire top 10 are quarterbacks, because I think his philosophy is that, like, you know, the elite quarterbacks are the most important players on the teams, and then he goes like out from there with other positions. But yeah, he's got Arch Manning at number 1. And listen, part of it I get. I mean, that's preseason number 1 according to the coaches poll, Texas. You know, they basically kicked Quinn Ewers out of the club just so they could promote Arch. And Ewers, by the way, he's camping really well with the Miami Dolphins. Like, I cover the Dolphins as well. He's not going to start over Tua this year or anything like that, but Quinn Ewers is looking really good in his first NFL training camp. So Arch, number 1, Gunnar Stockton at Georgia, number 2. And keep in mind, again, these are his most important players, not necessarily his best players. I think that's a good note. Ty Simpson at Bama, number 3. CJ Carr, Notre Dame, projected starting quarterback, number 4. Dante Moore, Oregon's quarterback, 5. Julian Sayin at Ohio State, number 6. Drew Aller, Penn State, number 7. And then he gets to Cade Klubnik, Kenton at number 8. In 6 career games against top 10 opponents, he's completed 49% of his passes, averaged just 4.9 yards per drop back, and 156.5 yards per game, produced a horribly mediocre 54.9 total QBR, and gone just 1-5 in those games. Klubnik hasn't exactly thrived against that level of competition, but following his performance against Texas in last season's CFP round, which was 336 in yardage, 3 touchdowns, and an 81.5 total QBR, his hype has increased. So honestly, there was a stat in there. I didn't know how, like, statistically bad Klubnik had been against top competition. So that taught me something. But everyone seems to expect, ourselves included, that Klubnik's going to rise to the occasion this year.
Absolutely. And I think only 2 guys in that top 10 so far actually cut the mustard for, hey, you are vitally important to your team's success. Ty Simpson and Cade Klubnik. Why am I saying that? Those 2 guys do not have these fortified superstars studded. Hey, this backfield, they're going to carry the mail, even if you piss down your leg. Cade Klubnik does not have that type of offense set up around him. And that's not to disrespect his receiving core or anything like that. They're phenomenal. But a receiving core is only as good as the quarterback allows them to be. And I look at the same thing with just those two. Everybody else in that list, they have teams set up around them where they can be terribly mid, and their teams will be just fine. Right. Drew Aller has been mid for years, and Penn State has not skipped a beat. It hasn't been like, oh man, if Drew Aller doesn't win this game for us, we just won't win it. That hasn't been the case. So why we're doing this now with, like, I understand quarterback is the most important position in the game. However, I think that the context of their situation is what makes it more or less dire. And Cade Klubnik, with due respect to Clemson's defense, which is superstar, it's star-studded. They're big time. They're phenomenal on defense. You added in an edge rusher that's a hell of a get and help and all that good stuff. You've got the guys on that defense. However, offensively, you do not have a running game that you looked at last year down the stretch as Maffa started to kind of pile up those nagging injuries with his bruising style of running. As he started to kind of slow down toward the end of the year, there was no running game that they could speak of to say, hey, this is something to write home about, right? We can do this very well. So with him and with the young man at Alabama, sure, I get it. Ike Simpson, I get it. Yeah. All the rest of y'all, maybe not. I think that Cade is in a position where he has to, this season will rest on him. All of those other players, I don't think it's to that same degree. I think Oregon can have a great year with Dante Moore being meh. Yeah, he's good enough.
Yeah, and he's young and unproven. That's one of the reasons why it's easy to hand him the keys to that team, because there is so much around him. So let's get to at number 9, Garrett Nussmeier, LSU. Then you've got Carson Beck at Miami at number 10. They write, in 2 years as Georgia's starter, Beck went 5-2 against top 10 opponents and produced a total QBR over 92 on 3 occasions. Granted, he threw 3 picks twice as well. Both of those were last year. But Georgia averaged a mammoth 36.6 points per game in those 7 contests. He's the most proven big game player in the sport this season, but he also had a confusing run of poor play last year. 12 interceptions, 13 sacks in a 6 game. I love how they blame the sacks all on him, apparently. That damaged or at least confused perceptions, they say. His final act will determine his legacy to a degree. Can he, with help from a theoretically improved defense, take Miami to its first college football playoff? And, it's funny because there's a lot of pressure, in Miami on Carson Beck. When I've had a chance to speak to him about that, like from his point of view, he's like, dude, I had to replace Stetson Bennett at Georgia, where I started at Georgia for 2 years. So he doesn't see that pressure as, as like some intimidating thing that fans may think he does.
Georgia making the playoff and having a first round exit is a disappointing season. Miami making the playoff and having a first round exit is, we've never done this before. We've never done this. Regardless of whether or not, there will always be that contingency of fans that's like, anything other than the Natty, it's a failure of a season. Sure. But the reality is, the bulk of Miami fans, if you end up playing in the Orange Bowl in the first round or in the second round rather, and being like, hey, we won the conference, we're in the Orange Bowl, that's good enough. That's good enough. And that's just the reality of what we're looking at here. So I do think from the pressure standpoint of things, not really there. And again, I think that Carson Bennett falls in that group of guys that, with all due respect, I think that he's going to be good. I think if he's healthy, he's going to be good. I don't think that Miami is like, hey, you've got to throw for 4,500 yards or we're cooked. We're done. You've got to be that guy. They've got some mammoths of backs in that backfield. They've got some guys up there. I shook CeCe Marino's hand and I said, I'm glad to be retired. I'm actually real good not having to do this anymore. And so, there's a situation here where, again, I understand that quarterback is the most important position in the game. And I understand all the teams that were mentioned are playoff contenders, teams that are on that bubble, teams that are blue bloods and have big expectations. To me, that does not make you one of the most impactful players just because you play an important position on an important team. To me, whether or not your team's success rides on you is that. If I was talking about the Penn State team and what their success rides on, I'm looking at those 2 backs. I'm looking at Allen. I'm looking at the Singletary. Those 2 guys are the ones I'm saying, hey, If y'all don't carry the mail, I've seen Drew when we asked him to carry the mail in a big-time game. If y'all two don't carry the mail, it's going to be a problem. Same thing with Miami. No disrespect to Carson Beck. This ain't saying we've seen him carry the mail and it looks bad. It's just saying we've seen what Miami looks at their best, and their best, as we imagine it to be this year, will be a punishing run game. And then you can kind of take some play action shots off the back of that.
That's well said. Let's talk about non-quarterbacks in the ACC who made the list. There may be even another quarterback or two, though, on the list. But also coming up, and you know I like to place a few wagers here and there, Kenton. And actually, this is a wager I have already placed. There is a shocking UNC Tar Heels football betting stat. We'll talk about that next. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. And where can you place these wagers, you might ask? I have an answer for you. FanDuel.com. Summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. And guys, betting futures, college football, we're loving these. We're going to talk about one of those in a minute. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, it's a great time to sign up because new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, before we get back into the ESPN Bill Connelly's list of the top 40 most important players in college football and other ACC players who made the list, I got to share this with you, Kenton, because I know you will appreciate this as an NC State guy about Bill Belichick's North Carolina Tar Heels. So I found this stat on a Duke blog, which goes to show you the Duke Blue Devils are tracking this stuff as well when it comes to UNC. So as of right now, North Carolina is the third most bet on team in all of America in terms of betting the under on their win total. That they are the third most clicks on FanDuel and all the other betting sites. They're getting the third most clicks of people betting the under on their over-under 7.5. Now, Kenton, when I first saw that 7.5 number, I thought, man, that's too high. And so I've already placed that wager. I think a week or two ago, I locked in my futures bet under 7.5 for UNC football. And apparently I'm not the only one, which goes to show you, hey, not to take anything away from Bill Belichick, but apparently the expectation in the eyes of America has been set too high for them.
Why are we scared to take something away from Bill Belichick? Let's start here. Donno found this stat and put this in the rundown, right or wrong? Because I know the UNC fans are going to say, oh, Kenton did that. Was that me or was that you, Donno?
No, it was me. All me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I thought you'd like it. I thought of you when I saw it, but it was all me.
You know what I like. You're my partner for a reason, Donno. You're my guy for a reason. But let's get into it. Why are we scared to take something away from Bill Belichick? Let's be honest. There are many aspects of the game that Bill has never dealt with. Bill has always coached professionally. He does not know how the incredibly wide hash marks affect offenses and defenses, how it affects your defensive spacing and things along those lines. He has not had to coach that in real live game time reps ever. Not once. Not once has that been a thing that he has had to deal with. So now, moving on from there, when we get past, the little things of, hey, Bill's got to learn the college football game, which is slightly different from the NFL. Let's also talk about the last time we saw Bill Belichick. Was he successful as a coach?
No.
The last time we saw him, was he leading a dynasty that we were like, oh, man, this Patriots team is nothing to be messed with? No. And another part of that?
The last time we saw Bill Belichick coaching, the last couple of years, all we kept thinking was, boy, did he need Tom.
And not only that, he was responsible for being the GM of that team, for doing the drafting and all that of that team. And his moves as the GM Cole Strange in the first round. Mac McCullough Jones in the first round. Those were his moves as a GM. So now that he's responsible by and large for talent acquisition as a head coach of a college team, where it's not just about a salary cap, it's not just about what do we do in terms of this player is going to ask for this much money. It's also about the evaluation of talent, which as of late, to quote the late great B.B. King, the thrill is gone. He's not that guy anymore. He has not been that guy for almost borderline, I'm going to say it, borderline a decade now. Borderline going on at least 6 or 7 years of, hey, Tom's been gone. You haven't been very good. Even with Tom there, you didn't surround him with a great amount of talent toward the back end of his stint with the Patriots. So I'm really confused as to why everybody's like, oh, this team's going to be great now. Donald, they've got a lot of very large players in the portal, and it's Power 4 football. Everybody has players that are big. I'm sorry to tell you, it is not just you. So I'm confused as to where people got that 7.5 from. And even worse than that, I'm shocked that all of these betting places are still leaving that up, because if I was a bettor, you best believe I'd be running down with my money. I mean, I'd be sprinting down that hill to place better.
I would imagine like they're raising the juice, like that, if you were like, if you're going to bet under 7.5, it's probably going to be like minus 150 or something. Cause it takes a lot of betting on one side to actually move the number. The juice moves pretty easily. Like for them to actually lower it to 6.5. If that were to happen within the next week or two, you're going to know people keep smashing that under. So I'm sure the juice is increasing, even if the number doesn't necessarily move. But yeah, moving back to this top 40 most important college football players list. Let me give you some of the other ACC players. Actually, there's a good ACC contingent here in the top 40. So after Cade Klubnik at 8, Carson Beck at 10, Connelly actually named an entire trio of Clemson receivers at number 16. He does this sometimes with multiple players. At number 16, Clemson wide receivers Antonio Williams, Bryant Wesco, and TJ Moore. And that, goes back to what you were saying about Klubnik. His highly touted receiving core is going to have to help him out the way that his guys helped him last year.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have to help out. And this is why I said that there were other groups and other units that I thought were much more deserving of this, because that group is going to have to perform well. Even if Cade Klubnik is having a spectacular year, as I continue to hear, and as fans continue to tell me about Carson Beck last year, the groups around him failed him. And that's what led to a lot of those interceptions. That's what led to a lot of those sacks that you were talking about there, because it's not all on a quarterback as like, hey, if you perform, everything else will fall into place. Well, why is that? I'm sorry. I have only seen one quarterback ever in my life where I looked at everybody else around and I'm like, hey, I don't think there are any players that's going to play on Sundays. And yet he was still a baller, and that was Cam Newton at Auburn. And even then, I said to myself, Philip Lutzenkirk, and God rest his soul, was going to play on Sundays, if not for that fatal accident that he was a part of. But I thought he was going to play on Sundays. So that's the closest I've seen, and that's because he was an H-back, fullback position where it's like it's tough to kind of get those in the league. But with that being said, these three have to perform well for Cade Klubnik to have the year that he wants to have, and for Clemson to have the year they want to have. Because again, Donald, how many returning yards does the Clemson backfield have? Over or under 500 total?
Ooh, I'm going to guess a little under that.
Under. It's well under that.
Well under.
So, yeah, it's well under that, unless you include Cade Klubnik's rushing yard, which again, we're just talking about the backs here. They have no experience. Nobody has played meaningful football. It is going to be up to this passing game by and large to carry that group.
So other ACC players, let me give you the rest of the names, and you tell me who stands out. I'll tell you who stands out to me. Haynes King at number 23, Georgia Tech quarterback. Another Clemson group of players at number 26, Peter Woods and TJ Parker on their defensive line. Number 29, Kevin Jennings, quarterback at SMU. Number 30, Reuben Bain, defensive end, Miami. Number 31, Miller Moss, quarterback at Louisville. And I think this is the last one, number 32, Darian Mensah, quarterback at Duke. You and I could probably talk all day about Haynes King and how important he is. And I could probably talk all day about Reuben Bain. And by the way, Kenton, being able to take in some Miami practices this week, Bain, he looks like he's all the way back. We mentioned him being affected by injuries last year. He's down to like his playing weight from 2 years ago. I think he got himself a little too heavy last year. It was like an overcalculation on his part, trying to get a little stronger, but maybe lost a little too much of the burst. So he looks fantastic, and he's constantly disruptive in practice. So yeah, I feel like he's going to live up to that number 30 top 40 player ranking.
Well, he's absolutely my player as well. Kevin Jennings is a guy that I look at and I say he's a quarterback. He's that team is going to rely on him heavily. But Reuben Bain is in a different position, because when you talk about what he is and who he is, that is a defense that was much maligned last year. In this new system, there will not be as much, or there's a much higher emphasis rather on pressure without blitzing. That's going to be an emphasis on this group in a way that we might not have seen in the past. And guess what that means? If the emphasis is on pressure without blitzing, who's going to have to get home? Your defensive line. Okay? If you're counting on your defensive line to be the guys that they want to be, you need somebody that is going to be a game record supreme. And I'm sorry to tell you all, if you don't believe that Reuben Bain is that, he's going to show you this year. But here's the flip side of it. When you talk about important, if he's not that, that defense is in trouble again. They're in trouble. I like Mesidor. This isn't saying that they don't have good guys around him. I like that defensive line. I think they're good outside of him. But without him being a legit star, it then creates so many other problems around him in terms of, wait, we can block him one-on-one? Oh, great. Now we have double teams elsewhere. This is fun. We love this. This is what we really want to see. And so now you got a player in essence negated on that play because Reuben Bain is able to be blocked one-on-one. But if he is the disruptor that I believe he will be this upcoming season, all of a sudden, he's what I like to call a math changer, because that's what defense is about. It's about changing the math. It's about saying that if you want to go 1-for-1 with me, you're going to lose. So now somewhere you've got to put a second. You've got to ease somebody over there, which now gives me a bunch of other one-on-ones. And if any of those guys change the math, now you don't have the extra body to commit. He has to be that person that tips the first domino. That first domino is always the heaviest one to push, and he has to be the guy to push it.
All said. When we come back, Big 12 vultures are talking about plucking certain teams out of the ACC. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode. And Kenton, when I say vultures, I'm not just talking about our very good friend Drake Toll, who does an awesome job with Locked On Big 12. He talks a lot of conference realignment, but I see these inside the Big 12 fanboy accounts on X. Some of these accounts that have big followings and they claim to know things. I mean, as a guy who covers Miami pretty closely, I can tell you with a lot of confidence, nobody associated with the Miami administration is talking about joining the Big 12 right now. I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen or it absolutely wouldn't happen, but these Big 12 accounts act like, Miami and Louisville are having all these conversations with the Big 12. That's what we are led to believe. And so obviously, Kenton, there has been hype and momentum in recent years. North Carolina, their links to the SEC have been recently reported on. Clemson and Florida State were previously suing the ACC, with the presumption there being that they may have SEC or Big Ten bids waiting for them. And so I guess now when I talk about the vultures circling, if people are under the assumption that within the next 3 or 4 years, 4 or 5 years, I should say, 2030, 2031, the ACC is going to have this grand exodus of certain schools going to the SEC and the Big Ten. Does that give the Big 12 an opportunity to strengthen themselves by ravaging kind of what's left of the bigger brands in the ACC? Can you see Miami and Louisville in 5 years' time under the Big 12 banner?
First of all, it may not be just Drake Toll, but we know he's the general of that army. Those are Toes trolls. And that's what I'm going to call him from now on. All the Big 12 fanboys that keep saying, oh, we're coming for all the ACC team. Y'all are Toes trolls, and I'm watching you. I've got my eye.
Yeah.
Now, moving forward from there, why would these teams move to make a lateral move in essence? The deals with ESPN are already done through a certain date. Unless it is very clear, hey, the ACC would not come close to what the Big 12 is making over at the over in Foxland. It would not make sense for these schools to leave. And a lot of people aren't realizing this. If Florida State and Clemson leave, that just created a void of power at the top.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what movie it was from, but I vividly remember the saying, chaos is a ladder.
Oh, that was from Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. Okay, gotcha. Chaos is a ladder. Miami, get your gloves ready. Get your steel toe boots on, because it's time to climb that ladder. If those two teams leave, you have always been knocking on the door just outside at multiple junctions, even last year, knocking on the door, 121-point comeback just outside the door. Guess what? No Clemson there. Does Miami make the ACC championship last year?
Yes.
With the success initiative and the viewership initiative, guess what would happen to Miami? They would be the beneficiaries of both in this conference. So now the money is on pace. And when you look at the success initiative and all that, even if your thought is, well, without Clemson and Florida State, the ACC takes a hit. Okay, fine. As a whole, the ACC takes a hit financially. Miami looks up and says, wait a minute. We can make money that is on pace with the Big 12, potentially slightly lagging behind the Big 10 and SEC. Why wouldn't we do that? Why
their piece
wouldn't
of the pie gets much bigger? The pie gets smaller, but their piece gets much bigger.
Exactly. So why would they instead say, I could understand if there was an argument of Miami leaving for the Big 10. Hey, I get it. SEC, I get it. The money's there. The prominence is there. The Big 12? Stop it. Stop. Go get some help. Go get some help. And Louisville is in that same space where they've taken a Jack Plummer-led team to an ACC championship.
They got Tyler Shuck drafted.
Tyler Shuck drafted in the top 50, Donno. In the top 50. And we're going to sit here and pretend like, oh, yeah, we can't see a world where they get at the top either. The reality is a lot of these, I believe that the ACC and Big 12's path to survival period is merging. But for whatever reason, the Big 12 keeps imagining, oh, we're going to steal your teams here, and we're going to take this team there. And it's just, again, the math just doesn't work out for them.
Yeah, it is true. Well, how do you what would a merger look like between the AC? Like, they just become one mega conference, or is there like scheduling agreement? Like, you actually want them to full on merge?
I want a full on merger. I want a full mega conference, and let me tell you why. You're under the mega conference. You can have the branches of East and West, and you can kind of have it out that way to where you put teams like Stanford and Cal in better positions from travel standpoints. You put a team like West Virginia in a better position as far as travel standpoint.
Yeah, they got teams out west. So you got the Utahs, Arizona State. Like, you have teams that could become natural rivals for the Western teams.
Exactly. And let me tell you why this is important. I don't believe that the ACC can beat the SEC or the Big 10 in terms of the big games we can put on, even with those conferences merging. Even if we retain Florida State and Clemson and we, merge those conferences, I don't think you'll be able to beat the Big 10 and SEC on a consistent basis. Here's where you win. You win by out-voluming them, okay? Donno, what's the most famous steakhouse that you know of that has multiple locations in multiple places? What's the most upscale place you could think of?
Morton's.
Morton's. Okay. Oh, yeah, I know Morton's. Okay. McDonald's would never beat Morton's if they're trying to say, hey, we will have as few locations as you, but we're going to outsell you with the quality of our product, or people are going to have it that way. You know how McDonald's does so much more in sales than Morton's? It's everywhere.
Yeah.
You cannot go 5 blocks without seeing a McDonald's. Starbucks doesn't make the best coffee in the world, but here's a fun fact. I live in North Carolina on a road called Six Forks. Within a 4-mile radius, there are 5 Starbucks. I kid you not. 2 of them are inside of Targets. 2 of them are standalones within a mile of the Target. And then there's another one in between both of those 2 Target and standalones.
Wow.
That is what the ACC and the Big 12 need to do. Out volume and say every single day you can wake up and know, which team from the Bi-Coastal Conference is playing today? Which team from the Big Coastal Conference is playing today? I want to see it's Tuesday. Oh, today it's Arizona versus Arizona State Day. Oh, it's Thursday. Oh, we're going to see Miami and Cal play today or whatever the case may be. You need to have that, because if your goal is I'm going to beat you in prime time, or I'm going to get those primetime games from ESPN, it's never going to happen. That's never going to work.
I like it. Well, we appreciate everyone spending your week with us here on Locked On ACC. Make sure you follow Kenton at Locked On Wolfpack and on X at TGIF_Kenton. You get great takes on NC State from Kenton and Grayson on Locked On Wolfpack. I host Locked On Canes. You can follow me at Alex Donno. I talk all things Miami Hurricanes in addition to the awesome time we have right here on Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.